We got started in February in 2016. It took us a little while to figure out exactly what it is at the homeless community and how the police could help. And what we found out coming up on 3 years is we found our program is kind of the hub of a wheel. There's so many outreach organizations and nonprofits that address homelessness or help out with homelessness, but generally you have to go to those services. We're the complete opposite. We're actually making contact with people first. And so what we found is, once we make contact, we're able to kind of get them to that spoke to where they need to go. When it gets cold like this, a lot of our homeless population do seek shelter. And what we generally do, like this weekend, we got a very cold spell coming up. Generally, we try to get contact with those folks before that happens. So that's kind of our main thing is making sure if they're not going to shelter that they do have some means to take care of themselves. Well, I actually didn't start off being in charge of it. I actually am the one that presented the idea to the chief. I worked a homicide when I was in robbery homicide a few years back, and 2 individuals brutally murdered a girl at 45th and Avenue P. They stabbed her to death. And I worked that homicide as a lead detective, and one of the individuals out of that confessed to me of committing the murder. And as we're driving around after he pointed these things out to me, he looked over at me and he asked me, he's like, "Am I going to jail for a long time?" And I said, "Probably so." I was like, "I have a warrant for murder for you." And then he looked back at me and said, "This is the best that he'd been treated in over a year." And that kind of got me thinking, could we have maybe had intervention with him if this team had been around, that maybe he hadn't gone down that path. And I thought about outreach programs and presented to the chief, and here we are today.
It's a little, not as complicated. My car was stolen, and I got stuck here. I've been here for a couple of days. They decided to help me out, and they've been great. I mean, wonderful. I had one place to sleep. I mean, they've gone above and beyond what I think they need to do. But I mean, it's just a wonderful place. Through the police department, because the people who stole my car put something in my drink and knocked me out, and I ended up in a hospital at Covenant. And the police department says until you get back home, which is for work, then go to this place here, the Salvation Army. That's what he said. I drove down here because I sold a house in Buckville, and as I was selling the house, somebody stole my car. So, I'm not that person. So I stay pretty warm. But I mean, just go to different places. I mean, there's a library that you can go to and read. I mean, I love to read. So there's been many here that's been longer than me, a lot longer. So no, I don't have family. I don't have any family left. They're gone. So these people here, the family we have now, I guess. Like I said, I've got above and beyond. This is a really close knit family. I mean, they sit there, and there's another place over here down the street called Open Door. That's what it's called. During the day, they're open all day. So if you get cold, you actually go there. That's a church. So and they have communities, or they have service all day. They can sit there and talk to the preacher and communicate with him and sing songs and just a lot of fun. So the only people that have actually answered the phone and actually helped are these people here. Surprised. I mean, toiletries, food, of course, shelter, of course, something to shave. I mean, they even offered me shoes, so I have to compare, so I didn't even compare. They even offered me shoes. I mean, they've offered me tons of stuff.
We see a lot more men. We only have 10 single women beds versus the 72 men. But definitely men take the lead by far. Mental illness is probably the biggest component that we see. A lot of individuals, they don't realize that we can get them in this program, and it is a program. It's not just a bed to sleep in and you leave the next morning. We actually want to see them through, the 30 days or, 120 days, however long it takes. After the 3rd day, once they've stayed with us, they're paired up with their caseworker, and it's at that time their caseworker is going to determine what brought them here. We're going to establish barriers, set goals, and then that's what we target. We have to stay positive, kind of turn it around. For the most part, most of these individuals, it's not something that they just got faced with. It stems back to their childhood, and we get like family counseling involved, individual counseling. Most of our guys need that.
Yeah.